at these times.
Gaurav, I wanted to ask you, we've been talking about financing for exports, working capital financing or pre-shipment credit. What about invoice financing? What about trades? India has put in an exchange where you can go and, submit your invoices, and if the organization is a reliable one, the intermediary will encash it for you. I think the secretary spoke about it. So how is that working?
Yep.
Factoring, trades, invoice finance.
Like we are in various countries, in one of the very large economy, we have really cracked the deep tier financing model using blockchain as a technology, wherein, the solution actually passes on the payment risk of the big, large client down to the lowest tier of supplier. So for example, if you have a large automobile company, which is procuring, let's say, steering wheels from a tier 1 supplier, the steering wheel manufacturer is, let's say, procuring a steel rod from a tier 2 deep tier supplier, and the steel rod manufacturer is, let's say, buying scrap from a tier 3. Now, the challenge is that the large automobile company will always have adequate funding at a very low cost because of the large balance sheet. The tier 1 guy would also have a decent amount of funding because of direct receipts that it will have from a large automobile company. But what about tier 2? What about tier 3? Their buyers are not of that great credit quality. Where is the transparency? Now, using blockchain, we've been able to bring transparency, establish the linkages, and by virtue of that linkage, that this scrap supplier is not just any other scrap supplier. Actually, the cash flows are coming right from this large automobile company in a way. And if you are able to bring that transparency, visibility, you are able to reduce risks and therefore bring down the cost, make finance available to the scrap supplier. Otherwise, scrap supplier would have been, in India case, borrowing at, let's say, 16%, lots of collateral. Now, the guy can borrow at 10% in the India context without any collateral. That's the efficiency. Yeah, you would like to add?
Go ahead.
I just want to add one comment. I think when we speak about all the digital solutions, it's a lot of buzzwords all the time. And of course, we can think about that OpenGPT saves the world, etc., which it will not do, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I think one of the big advantages of digital technologies in trade and trade finance is really that you can show and give evidence how to reduce the risk. We know that the non-performing loan rates, etc., they are extremely low for trade finance, below 1% if you think about export or import loans, below 0.05% if you think about export letter of credits, etc. But if you use, for example, artificial intelligence, if you use machine learning techniques like random forests, you can show with all the data that the prediction of claims, or the prediction of losses, can be really used with artificial intelligence. We have done a big research project on that recently with a lovely publication nobody wants to read, I'm sure, but if you are lonely and have nothing to do on the weekend, I'm more than happy to share that. So I just want to say the digitization stage is really very diverse, from a starting point, how to access MSMEs, how to use applications, how to do credit modeling, how to do analysis and underwriting, until at the end, how to use with claims and recoveries. So I think we need the broader picture, and we really have to move away a bit sometimes from the buzzwords to the real opportunities of fintechs and insurtechs, because the potential is significant in that.
And just one more. Because you talked about NPCI and successive payment, I would just like to make a mention of ONDC, which is coming on the way. And that would be something on the trade side, which would bring democratization of MSME accessing various things. And I think that's where potentially banks, financial institutions have a role to play, because while ONDC would provide access to SMEs, through various buyers, but banks should also partner in the network to provide relevant financing. And that's when the physical supply chain and financial supply chain will chime in with each other, and that is where we will see the results. One more thing.
Okay, for those who are not aware, ONDC is an open network for digital commerce that's underway in India. I'm just referring to the foreign delegates. It's a promise. you have to think of it like an open source Amazon. Hopefully it's a marketplace where just about any shopkeeper can get in and do digital commerce. So you don't need to develop your own software, proprietary software that Amazon has. This is a public software, a platform available in which everyone should ideally be able to do digital commerce. It's in early stages. And that's my point, really. You know, all of you have used the words, the possible positives from digitalization. It is not here yet. Is it yet to arrive?
I think a lot of that has been delivered. And Steve, please jump in. I see a lot of that has been delivered, but the opportunity is humongous. And, you know, the ideas to leverage that in one way or the other way, it is actually getting built upon what you are doing. So using technology you have delivered in
Will
X-ray.
Chart's balance sheet have like 50% loans to MSMEs? Or will it still be large corporates? It's going to be large corporates, right? I'm just saying that it is still a promise which is to be delivered. Stephen, what's your sense? Have the advantages of digitalization been delivered, or are we still talking about it as a promise?
No, we're way off. Okay. You know, the physical movement of goods across borders is still a very analog process, right? It involves physical paper, some 30 documents that are required to ship something, physical good, across borders. It's ripe for disruption, and it's really impeding our ability to generate more growth in the economy, to drive transparency through the economy, so that we can do a better job of detecting trade-based money laundering and the like. It's impeding MSMEs from entering the sort of realm of trade because of the complexities and so on that the Honorable Minister referred to in his GP chat search. So to digitalize that process would be transformative in the history of trade. So we know what needs to be done to digitalize trade, and we should be able to get this done by 2026. So on the one hand, we need to digitalize those 30 documents. Digital Standards Initiative that's bringing together the exporters, the shipping, the ports, the customs, the warehousing and logistics, and the importers to agree on the digital format of those 30 odd documents that are required. So that's being done. But it might come as a shock to the audience to know that, in fact, there are very few governments in the world that have legislation in place that recognizes those digital documents for trade. And so right now, it's not possible to digitalize global trade because the laws aren't in place. But the United Nations has created, UNCITRAL has created some model laws that enable the digitalization of trade because it recognizes these impending sort of digital documents. And that really is the crux of the proposal to G20. If G20 would agree that by 2026 it will implement legislation that's aligned with this UNCITRAL sort of model law to recognize digital documents, that would be transformative and unlock the ability to generate all that transparency, digitalize global trade, have all of that metadata to help close information gaps that contribute to the financing gaps on MSMEs. This is not a controversial proposal. I think all governments in the geopolitical sort of spectrum are supportive in theory, but we need to just move this forward. So as an action plan, I would appeal to the G20 Trade and Investment Working Group to have G20 agree that by a specific date it will implement this legislation. It would hit at the major themes of inclusion, MSMEs, growth, and resilience in value chains. Thank you.